Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are breaking down what might just be the single most powerful tool for leadership, for influence, really for anything, and that is storytelling. And look, this isn't some fluffy, artsy thing, it's science. It's a tool that can literally change how people see the world, and more importantly, how they see you. Okay, so let's just dive right in with a number that honestly seems kind of impossible. $8,000. What on earth does this have to do with telling a story? Well, as it turns out, everything.
So back in 2009, a journalist named Rob Walker decided to run this wild experiment to answer that very question. He went out and bought around 200 totally random, pretty worthless items from thrift stores and garage sales. And no, he didn't fix them up or discover they were priceless antiques. What he did was much simpler and way more powerful.
He proved the answer to this question is a huge, resounding yes. So how did he do it? Simple. He hired a bunch of writers to attach a unique, compelling story to every single item before he put it up on eBay. That's it. A plastic horse head he bought for 99 cents, it sold for over $60. The stories weren't just fluff. They added real, measurable, cold, hard cash value. So what is going on here? I mean, this feels like magic, right? But it's not. It's a measurable, biological reaction that's happening inside our brains. When a story really grabs you, it's because it is physically changing your brain chemistry.
See, when a really good story hooks you, your brain isn't just, processing words. It's actually rewarding you with this potent mix of hormones. And this chemical cocktail, it doesn't just make you feel good for a second. It actually changes how you feel, how you think, and what you're likely to do next.
And here's the really cool part, how these three hormones work together. Some people, like this storyteller J.P. Phillips, call this the angel's cocktail. So you've got dopamine, which makes the story feel important and helps you remember every little detail. Then oxytocin kicks in, and suddenly you feel empathy, you feel trust for the person telling the story. And finally, endorphins give you that relaxed, creative, happy buzz. When you put them all together, we become less critical and way more emotionally invested.
So that feeling, right? That emotional state of trust and connection, that is the secret sauce. And it's exactly why the most inspiring leaders and the most iconic brands, well, they communicate in a way that's completely different from everyone else. They know how to tap into this brain chemistry because they start from a totally different place.
And this slide just illustrates the difference perfectly. Author Simon Sinek calls it the golden circle. See, most companies, they start with what they do. We make great computers. But the truly inspired leaders, like Apple, they start with why they do it. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. It's a complete flip of the script, and it changes, well, everything. And here's the kicker. This whole golden circle idea isn't just some clever marketing trick. It aligns perfectly with how our brains are actually wired to make decisions in the first place. So when you talk about the what, you're speaking to our rational brain, the neocortex. It understands facts, figures, features, all the logical stuff. But when you communicate the why, you're speaking directly to the limbic brain. And that's the part that controls our feelings, our gut instincts. That's where trust and loyalty are born.
All right, so now we get the why behind storytelling, right? We see how it works on our brains, so let's switch gears and talk about the how. What are the actual ingredients? What are the components that make a story truly connect with us?
You know Andrew Stanton, right? The genius at Pixar behind movies like WALL-E and Finding Nemo? He boils it all down to one simple commandment. He says every great story has to answer the audience's unspoken plea, which is basically, make me care. If you can't do that, nothing else you say is going to matter.
So he gives us this kind of blueprint for making people care. First, you've got to make a promise, a hook that tells the audience, hey, stick with me, this is going somewhere interesting. Then, and I love this one, you give them 2 + 2, but you don't say 4. You let them figure it out. You let them connect the dots. You also need a strong, single theme running through the whole thing. And finally, you have to invoke a sense of wonder. It's about taking people from being passive listeners to being active participants.
So we've seen why stories work, and we've seen what they're made of. And when you start looking at legendary leaders, you can see these exact clues in everything they do. They don't just dump facts on you. They build these narratives that, you guessed it, make us care.
I mean, Steve Jobs was the master of this. He understood this probably better than anyone. He never sold computers. He sold a story about creativity, about being a rebel, about challenging the norm. He sold a vision, and the MacBooks and iPhones, they were just the souvenirs you bought to prove you believed in that story. And it's the same thing with someone like Richard Branson. He built this massive global empire by telling stories of adventure, of disrupting boring, stale industries. The Virgin brand became a story about an experience, about having fun and shaking things up. It was never just another airline or another record store.
Now, it's really easy to look at guys like Jobs or Branson and think, okay, so you have to be this super charismatic, loud, extroverted person to be a great storyteller. But that assumption misses a huge piece of the puzzle. It's just not true.
Susan Cain, in her incredible book Quiet, just shatters that myth. She argues that our whole culture dramatically, and I mean dramatically, undervalues the power of introverts. And this applies directly to who we think of when we picture a great leader or a great storyteller.
Because think about it. The best storyteller isn't always the one with the microphone commanding the stage. Often, it's the person who listens deeply, who thinks about problems from all the different angles, and who crafts a story with real substance. Their quiet power comes from that observation and reflection, and it lets them tell stories that truly, deeply resonate.
Okay, so let's tie all of this together. What does this actually mean for you? Whether you're trying to lead a company or a small team or maybe just your own career, how do you put all this into action?
Ultimately, it comes down to this. Your story, the one that's built on your why, isn't a sales pitch meant to convince everyone. It's a filter. It's designed to attract the people who are meant to be on your journey and give them a real reason to trust you, to follow you, and to believe in what you're doing.
So, that's the final question, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, if you're leading a startup or a study group. The real question isn't if you have a story. Everybody has a story. The question is, have you found the why behind it, and do you have the courage to tell it? What is the one story that only you can tell?